So this is recommended by a friend of yours, or?
Yeah, a friend of the show, Kelly, said, I saw this ridiculous movie that I think would fit onto your podcast. You just need to find a dinosaur-themed beer.
Well, that was harder than we expected. We've actually been looking for a while. I think Kelly's been waiting for this one with bated breath.
Yeah, I think we asked us for this first season, possibly, and it took us a while to find a good beer to match with it, but we've finally done so. So now we're jumping headfirst into a Paul Walker and Denise Richards classic.
Classic might be a strong word. I was going to say, this is kind of like a before they were famous, like, you know, two young actors just looking for work and
accepting anything they could find, including movies where they get f***ed by animatronic T-Rexes.
We don't know if she did, in fact, have sex with the animatronic T-Rex, although it is kind of implied.
It's heavily implied. She walks pretty funny after the cut scenes there.
You know what? I don't even know what to say about this other than welcome to Bad Movies and Beer. I'm Cooper.
And I'm Nolan.
And today, by special request, we are discussing Tammy and the T-Rex, a movie that somehow was more crazy than what I expected.
Yeah, I didn't really know what I was getting into. I heard it involved somebody's consciousness being put into an animatronic dinosaur, and that in itself sounded worth watching, but it was way more than I could have ever imagined.
Sound like Denise Richards talking about that animatronic T-Rex.
Yeah, she thought that it would have been smaller and not blow, but she just let that thing go full force in there, and her life was changed.
It was more like the dinosaur's legs than its arms. You know what I mean?
Although the arms in this seem to be pretty versatile and change spaces, so we can get into that later.
Of all the things, and we're going to get into it, but of all the things in this movie, the ability of the T-Rex to use its arms might be the one I have the biggest problem with. But like you said, we'll talk about that later. First, before we do, every week, we pair a beer with the movie, and like we said, it took us a while to find a dinosaur-themed beer, but we have it. What are we drinking this week, Noel?
Yeah, this one is called Party Dinosaur, and it has an amazing picture of like a snake creature riding on a Tyrannosaurus, and this is from a brewery in the United States. You actually brought this back for us, and that's why it took us so long. There was not a lot of dinosaur-themed beers around us here.
No, Canada apparently not super pro-dinosaur, at least not in the beer game.
I know. I don't know where that is, but we found one now. This is from a brewery called Oozlefinch. They're beers and blenders. It's called Oozlefinch Beers and Blenders. So right away, you kind of get a sense that blending stuff is a part of what they do, and this does not disappoint. This is a slushy sour. So this is...
Oh, yes, please.
Oh, yeah. We love these here on the BMB pod. The sour ale that is combined with actual fruit puree, and this one has quite the collection. Do you want me to read them off?
Please, yes.
We've got banana puree, mango puree, pineapple puree, Andean blackberry puree, and vanilla in this one. So a whole lot of stuff going into this. This is going to be tasty. Oozlefinch is out of Virginia. They've been around since 2010, and they say it's simple. They brew complex beers in a complicated way. So I laughed a lot at that. I thought that was funny, but I think you interpreted it well. I think you thought maybe they use like simple ingredients, but they mix them together in a pretty cool and creative way, and it sounds like that in this beer.
Yeah, I cannot wait to get into this one. Full disclosure, I have drank this before. I brought back up a 4-pack. We're down to the last 2 here, but I recall it being very good, and I'm looking forward to having it again today.
I'm super excited. This is just what the doctor or mad scientist, based on our movie, ordered today.
Yeah, was he a real doctor? Or he just poses one in that one scene that we'll get to.
I think he is a doctor, but not a medical doctor. He's like a researcher scientist.
Oh, okay.
Right? Like he's like a PhD doctor, not a medical doctor, and he has come up with some crazy stuff. Of course, they made him European, but you know,
extremely European. Yeah.
All right, let's get into this.
I agree.
I know I need to be drunk to talk about this movie.
So we open with immediate confusion as the title card tells us that this movie is called Tanny and the Teenage T-Rex. Things get straightened out quickly, though, and by things, I mean my penis, as our first scene is about 3 minutes of Denise Richards in cheerleader practice.
Was it Denise Richards, or was it the other cheerleaders, or just the whole combination that made you erect?
I just thought, how old is she here?
old enough.
Okay, because they're playing teenagers, so
Yeah, that's probably crossing the line, but she's over 18 to be in this movie.
has to be, right?
Yeah, I mean, Paul Walker doesn't look like he's 18.
Well, yeah,
but
I was
she
going to
is,
say
yeah.
that will not make me less nervous about what I just said. He comes in the gym at the end of this practice, and I've never seen him look this young.
No, this seems like kind of Saved by the Bell taken to just a slightly sexier level. Right now, we're getting the inside the gym, we're getting the cheerleading, we're getting the football star coming in, and cheerleading practice ends, and they give each other a little kiss, and they head out talking to each other.
Definitely. Footnote here. He could have seamlessly blended into the cast of Starship Troopers, like no problem, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is our
just
second.
some good-looking people spending time together.
Our second Denise Richards movie. I know that movie was full of studs, right? Like that one was everyone.
And Jake
in it.
Busey.
No, Jake Busey was the hottest one alive. There.
That's a ridiculous statement.
I love that people on Instagram were defending Jake Busey, and I stand for this.
Like one person was.
Yeah,
Let's not.
That person's the best.
You were a fan of theirs. Anyway, Paul Walker is playing the role of Michael, who I assumed is Tammy's boyfriend, but it turns out that she's dating or used to date local burnout / ne'er-do-well Billy, who does not like the fact that he's hanging around her. In fact, he doesn't like it so much that they immediately get into an absolutely ridiculous fight.
Yeah, just before this fight breaks out, we have Denise Richards telling Paul Walker that he needs to leave, that they can't be together because Billy is going to hurt him. And he takes a rose that he had given her and he decides to chomp on it. He eats the flowers off of it, and this I wouldn't bring up, but it becomes something that's important later in our plot.
What's the whole reason why he does it? There's no reason for him to do that other than to set it up later, which is, I guess, on some level, good job by the screenwriters for working backwards on that one. I don't know.
So he eats this flower, and then he's like, I'm not afraid of this Billy character. And then, like in other movies we saw, the plot happens way too fast here. Billy shows up, and we're immediately into a fight, and this fight is straight out of WWE.
It's absurd. They are swinging each other around by the arms. Billy does do like an elbow drop on Michael at one point, and this whole thing ends with them both squeezing the life out of each other's dick and balls. Or, as one of the cops who comes to break this up puts it,
What we got here is one of them testicular standoffs.
This fight is hilarious. The fact that we get ourselves into like 2 minutes of these teenage boys, or I don't know, maybe they're almost men, grabbing each other's and not letting go. And the cops are not using force to break this up, right? They're just trying to talk them down, trying to count them out of the ball grab. And eventually it works. They get them letting go of each other's.
well, yeah, they agree to let go on 3, and it turns out that Paul Walker is wearing a cup this whole time and his balls are fine. But it looks like he may never get his chance with Denise Richards. But don't give up, honey, because true love never dies.
Yeah, she runs off all upset, right? She wants to protect Michael from Billy, and she does have strong feelings for him, but she doesn't want him to get hurt, so maybe it's over for them. We get introduced to another character here, too, Byron, who ends up playing a pretty big role in the movie. He helps push the plot along quite a bit. Also a pretty ridiculous gay stereotype.
Yeah, but I thought that this movie actually did a pretty good job of like towing that line. It wasn't like the kind of homophobic humor that we've seen in other movies from the 90s or 80s. They're kind of like right on the borderline, but they don't really teeter over except for one key point later. But in general, at first, they're treating him pretty respectfully. He does play a prominent role in this.
Yeah, it's true. I agree that they hold the line better than most of the movies we've seen from this time period. That's for sure.
Definitely. Now from there, we cut to a very smoky room and the unmistakable figure of an animatronic T-Rex. This is apparently the product of an extremely European genius who has very high aspirations for this robot. He's going to eventually get it out from behind these walls and give it immortality. And acting-wise, on a scale of 1 to 10, this guy's coming in at about a 19.
Yeah, he's laying it on real thick. I kind of recognize him. I can't tell you who it is, but he's definitely a face from TV or movies from the era. Right away, I'm like, did this come out around the time of Jurassic Park? Like, why the are we introducing the animatronic dinosaur?
1 year later is the answer to that. And so they're clearly trying to cash in here. What do you think?
Yeah, this is definitely a way for them to sort of get some of the Jurassic Park money, I guess, but I had never heard of this. We grew up during this time, and like this sounds like something that should have been on my radar. A teen movie that also involves dinosaurs?
Except there is a 0% chance this would have played in like every theater in North America, Canada especially. Like, I bet it's got a very limited run, if at all.
You think straight to video, this bad boy?
Oh, no, it probably was in theaters for a minute, but not much longer than that. And I don't know if it made it all the way up here.
Yeah, that's fair. I had never heard of it until it got brought up and recommended to us, so maybe we missed it on that. But man, it would have been funny to see at the time. If I saw this as a teenager, I would have probably just loved it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You'd be seeing every Denise Richards movie for the rest of your life, basically. You'd be lining up for him, wouldn't you?
She wouldn't disappoint.
Kind of happened anyway with
yeah,
Wild
exactly.
Things. So, yeah.
I was going to say, we saw Starship Troopers after. We saw Wild Things, so yeah.
Well, speaking of Denise Richards, that night she calls Paul Walker and tells him to come over to her parents' house because she's tired of being alone and needs him right now. He basically leaves one of those cartoon smoke out lines. He runs out of his house so fast.
Oh, hold on. He has to go back into his room to dig a dong bag out from under
he does.
his junk drawer.
Dump into his drawer for a Jimmy hat. That's true. And when he gets to her house, he climbs up a trellis to her bedroom. This is a pretty seamless entry, except for the part where he knocks over literally everything that she owns, which makes a ton of racket. And there's also the small fact that a couple of girls spot him going in there and decide to call Billy. Uh-oh.
Yeah, Billy's not going to be happy that this Michael character is about to lay pipe on his ex here. This Billy character is actually the one that I think bothers me the most in this movie. There's just zero depth to it, right? Like, it's just all forward on like wanting her back and only caring about having her. Like,
just your stereotypical dick, like bully. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't love this character, but we know this is going to be a problem for them. They start getting it on, or they start getting a little bit intimate here in bed after he's done trashing her bedroom, knocking everything over. And how's this going?
Well, we actually get, this is a little joke in here that pops up a couple of times, and I love this. Right when he gets on top of her and starts kissing her, she goes to like moan with pleasure, and we get an immediate cut to her dad taking a sip of coffee, being like, "Ooh, that's hot." It's just like this like little just like jump cut, kind of like the Austin Powers thing with the spaceship where they keep cutting whenever they use a different term for penis.
Yeah, it was good actually. The cut's really good. We can tell things are getting hot in the bedroom and in her dad's mouth. And so things are progressing here, but then all of a sudden we hear some tires screeching and lots of lights hit the house.
Yeah, Billy's here with a whole gang of goons, and they kind of storm this house, banging on the door, pushing past her dad, rushing up the stairs to completely block Paul Walker, who has to jump out the window to escape. Unfortunately for him, they give chase, and this night takes a real bad turn.
Yeah, I know this movie is about Paul Walker becoming a f***ing dinosaur, so we kind of know. I know. It felt just as ridiculous when I say it. Yeah. But I know that that's what's coming. So we have a sense here that this is where things are going to go badly for him. He was just about to have sex with his dream girl, but instead he's getting chased by her ex. They end up catching him, hitting him with a baseball bat, and throwing him in their trunk.
Well, hang on. They kind of hit him with the baseball bat. These baseball bat shots are f***ing awful.
It was clearly not a bat. It bent like it was styrofoam.
Doesn't make any contact with him. He drops about a minute early.
Yeah, it was really bad. So they baseball bat him and they throw him in the trunk, and we're kind of curious what's going to happen to him here. Even the people in his gang are like,
"How far are you going, boss?" "I'm going all the way."
Just like Paul was going to do with Denise, but it didn't happen. Where do they take him?
Well, apparently wherever these kids live, they have a wild animal park close by. Not a zoo, mind you, a wild animal park. And basically, Billy drives in there with his goons, and they let Michael out, leading him to believe they're just like leaving him out there. He can walk home. He has no idea he's in the wild animal park. So he begins his walk home. And unfortunately, this is so silly, he ends up getting mauled by a lion.
Yeah, after he gets chased by a cheetah, he climbs a tree and gets confronted by a panther.
Right.
He gets mauled by a lion.
I was really hoping all three jungle cats were going to team up at the same time, which would never happen in nature, which would have made it even more funny, but it didn't happen.
That would have been awesome. The fact that they were all together in the same space was also pretty ridiculous.
The fact that apparently you can just drive a car into the space and get out and be standing next to a lion is also somewhat concerning.
Well, they did cut the locks on a gate that let them into it.
That's because it was nighttime and it was closed, not because you can't drive in there normally.
That's fair. So it was It was absurd that they got in there. So he's getting mauled by this lion. The effects are horrible. What we're seeing is like a little bit of blood on a dummy's chest.
Well, also, the blood is all orange in this movie. Every time there's blood, it is like orange, like the color of like strawberry Kool-Aid. It's not red.
I was thinking Gatorade. It seemed like, or that orange drink you used to get from McDonald's.
Oh, yeah. McDonald's orange drink.
That was coming up for me every time I saw it. So he's getting mauled, and we assume he's dead at this point. But no, we have a park warden kind of roll in right in time, fires off some shotgun shells, and then we get an ambulance taking our Paul Walker character, to the hospital.
That's true. And while he's there, he gets visited by Tammy and Byron. Billy tries to barge in too, but they tell him to get lost. And when he refuses, Tammy knees him in the d***, and Byron threatens to scratch out the eyes of Billy's number 2 man. So they leave, and Tammy and Billy celebrate, laughing and high-fiving. And just over their shoulder is Paul Walker, still in that coma. So I don't know, guys. Maybe don't celebrate quite so much,
Maybe too hard. It is weird that he got mauled and he's in a coma. What is also weird is that he got mauled and there are no scratch marks anywhere on his entire body. The only injury we can see on him is a bruise on his eye from the fight he had with Billy the day before.
They've got his chest bandaged up. But however, there is definitely the amount of damage that there should be, especially not if this attack launched him into a coma. There should be more evidence of damage for sure. That crazy European scientist from earlier arrives. We learn here that his name is Dr. Walkenstein, and he's there with his nurse, Helga. Now, the doctor is posing as a visiting neurosurgeon, and while taking a look at Michael's body, Helga pulls the cord in his heart monitor, which seemingly thrusts him into cardiac arrest. This is all a scheme to get Michael's body out of there, or more specifically, his brain. But the doctor still puts in a pretty decent performance here as he tries to resuscitate him.
Live! It's pretty bad. I'm wondering here if there's sort of like a Christopher Walken kind of thing going on here. If Walkenstein is actually like a reference to Christopher Walken. I don't know. He does feel Walken-esque to me, this doctor, and especially in the live point.
Similar hair.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Well, they get Michael's body back to Walkenstein's lab or whatever. Michael actually wakes up a couple of times during this process, but Helga keeps knocking him out, and eventually they lay him down on an operating table, saw through his head, and remove his brain. Well, first the doctor, who has been smoking this whole time, by the way, shows off by poking different parts of Paul Walker's brain to make it do stuff, including, or perhaps especially, causing him to get an erection and then making it dance. What the f*** is happening?
Oh my God. This part is just so over the top. The tool he uses to cut his skull off is not a medical tool. It is literally a like wood handsaw.
It's a reciprocating saw.
Yeah. And he has it way too close to the skull. The way that they're showing go around, he would have just massacred his brain. It would have just been mush. But when he pokes it at first, he makes his leg go. And then the doctor, like you said, decides to push the part that makes his boner happen. And I couldn't stop laughing.
Oh, we both just died. This was hilarious.
We had to pause the fucking movie because the noise that the doctor was making, the as he was fucking making his boner go up and down, just made me stop. Like, I couldn't help it. I was done. It was so funny.
Also, that thing went from 6 to midnight in no time at all. It was like completely flat sheet. All of a sudden, raging erection. Just immediate trigger.
And like a good 1.5 feet of an erection. They weren't going for subtlety in this.
Stop it. That's ridiculous.
They made this thing huge.
That does come up later, actually.
Yeah, well, it's pretty dinosaur-ish. Yeah.
With the brain secured, it's time to connect it to the T-Rex. And these effects are not strong. Basically, they put the brain in a bowl of bubbling green liquid and start poking wires into it, which is really just an excuse to generate some slapstick comedy. Walkenstein makes the dinosaur lift up Helga's skirt. He gets it to kick his muscular helper. Really just going for the low-hanging fruit here.
Yeah, they're trying to push on some pretty low-hanging comedy here, right? With the kick and the Helga skirt. We see Helga here, but we haven't really talked about her a whole lot. What were your feelings about Helga?
I'm a fan. I like her. Yeah. So she's bringing a lot to the table.
Very tall European woman who apparently is a nurse.
Batshit crazy.
Batshit crazy.
Out of her mind.
Used to be a porn star.
Possibly. Unclear.
Suggested. I don't know. So pretty entertaining as his helper. So he's got the brain hooked up to the dinosaur now, and he's ready to let his creature go loose, right?
Well, not quite yet. It's a little bit late, so the doctor decides to take a break to go nail Helga. And he leaves that muscular guy there with a tiny computer programmer who we met a couple minutes earlier. They're going to watch the T-Rex, and this is going fine until they get a little too casual. The big guy throws his pizza crust in Paul Walker's scalp, and the little guy taunts the dinosaur, which causes it to come to life, thus starting an absolutely batshit crazy series of events. You know, as opposed to the totally reasonable storyline we've had so far.
Yeah, everything has been just so reasonable. For sure, it's normal for an ex-boyfriend to kidnap and let loose a lion on the lover of
a wild game preserve.
Yeah, for them to turn into a comatose patient and then have their brain taken out and put into a dinosaur. This is all lining up. You forgot to mention that the little guy and the big muscly guy also went off to
we don't know that for sure.
Oh, we do.
They
Based
go to
on
a different room. Well, hang on a second. They come back and there is a little tension between them as though something has gone wrong. But I mean, we don't know what they were doing in that room.
Well, we can only assume based on the way that they were acting and by the sort of model set by Doctor and Helga that they went to go bone too, and it didn't go the way that the little guy wanted. Little guy's kind of upset about this, and he's taking it out on the dinosaur, and it does not go well for him. Just like you said, the dinosaur does not like being poked. This little guy starts taunting him, and what happens? He wakes up and bites his fucking head off.
Which, again, speaking of the effects in this movie, my God, this is hilarious.
I love the point where they get picked up by the dinosaur. Like, that part's entertaining. As soon as you start seeing the, like, dummy's head get squished and
It just looks like they jam some tomatoes into a rubber mask. That's all it is. It drops down to the floor. It's covered in that same orangey liquid, and it's so clearly not an actual human head. Like, come on.
A lot of floppy rubber mask, for sure.
Big time. So after ripping this guy's head off and picking a piece of it out of his teeth, T-Rex Paul Walker sees his own human body lying there and like gently caresses his face with his new fucking dinosaur arm.
Okay. So this is the first instance of the dinosaur arm coming in and being ridiculous.
Teeth picking too.
That's true.
It's very silly. Yeah.
But the fact that he mourns his own body and that he rubs it so gently, I couldn't control myself. Like it was beyond anything I could have imagined seeing on a screen.
Yeah, well, there's gonna be more crazy shit from there. Like we're gonna see more. Don't worry.
Where does he go from this?
Well, that bodybuilder comes back and confronts T-Rex Paul Walker. The dinosaur kicks him through a wall and crushes him by stepping on both his torso and head. And now freed from the lab, the T-Rex makes its way to a payphone where it tries to call Tammy but gets her answering machine. And I will say this with complete honesty, the effects as this thing is moving around are truly unbelievable.
Oh, goodness. Are you talking about when we get the shots of the dinosaur moving? It looks like a toy being pushed around on
slowly, frame by frame, in front of like a blurry picture. It's so jarringly bad.
It's weird because the quality of filming for the rest of the movie is pretty good. Like, it doesn't feel like we're watching, I don't know, Birdemic.
Yeah, this is
right. But when those scenes come up, it feels like something out of Birdemic.
This is a noticeable drop off in production quality for sure. Also, we just talk about the fucking arms. Every time the dinosaur uses its arms, it is so clearly a separate piece, like reaching into frame. The angle is impossible. The rules of physics are clearly not being followed. And it's just more ridiculous than I can possibly explain here.
Now, my question to you is, do you think Paul Walker is the puppeteer for the arms?
Oh, maybe. If this needed a guy, Paul, can you push this arm in there?
Well,
it's part of your performance, Paul. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm wondering if Paul, because those arms were maybe the most gentle and tender part of this entire movie. Every time they came in, they had just such a subtlety to them. I wondered if, like, this was Paul mourning the loss of his body and moving forward here. Was this the best performance Paul Walker's put in his life?
My God,
the
no,
arms
stop
of
it.
the T-Rex.
Don't be silly. No, I think this really shows why you had to use like young, not established actors for this, because if you try to make this with real actors, they wouldn't be able to keep a straight face during this whole thing.
I mean, the whole thing is super silly. This movie is laughing at itself. Like, it has to be. There's no way this movie takes itself seriously.
We debated this while we were watching it, and this will probably come up during our ratings for sure. I agree with you. It just has to be. It just cannot be a serious, like, honest attempt at movie making. It just can't be. From here, the dinosaur makes its way to a party where Tammy is mourning Michael's loss, and Billy tries once again to get her back. And it basically goes on a killing spree here.
Yeah, the party's going okay until Billy shows up, and then we get a confrontation between Billy and our Tammy character. Tammy tells him to f*** off, and Billy's upset, but he decides, that's okay. I will take another girl, and he goes back and starts f***ing her in his convertible. And while that's happening, his number 2 is kind of pissed because Billy is paying more attention to the girl than him. I think number 2 actually wanted Billy a little bit.
Hard to say.
It's hard to say, but so he's grumpy. He sees the dinosaur there. He walks right up to the T-Rex, and instead of like being scared of it, he just laughs about it and starts pissing on it. Well, this starts the beginning of the end for number 2 and a bunch of the rest of the gang.
Yeah, as we were watching this, once he started pissing, I was like, please bite his dick off. I wanted so badly to see the T-Rex bite his dick off, like the fucking Sasquatch in Night of the Demon. Like with that, I was like, please, that would have been so good. He doesn't. He just fucking guts him with one of his claws. But from there, like you mentioned, the T-Rex goes to where Billy is nailing this girl, pulls the girl out by one leg. We hear the cops say later on that she lost the leg because of it, chases Billy down, does the head bite off thing to Billy, and also, like, there's 2 guys who try to hide underneath the car. I guess they're part of Billy's crew. And the T-Rex, seeing them hiding under the car, decides just to walk up on the car and use its T-Rex animatronic girth to like crush the car, which it does, causing the one dude's eyes to pop out in another practical effect sequence that made me laugh out loud. This whole kill spree is just 5 minutes of glorious, glorious madness, and I really enjoyed it.
It was fucking amazing. This is a huge homage to Jurassic Park. This whole section here.
I'm not sure that Steven Spielberg would appreciate you calling this scene a homage to Jurassic Park.
But it is definitely that, because we even get, when it shows up, we see the glasses and we see the liquid moving in the glasses and we get some tables moving. And the section where it's biting people, and especially when it steps on the car and crushes. Now, the T-Rex doesn't wipe out everybody who's here. There is one party goer, our friend Byron, who is near a couple of the kind of thugs that get squished, who's obviously worried for his own life, but the T-Rex picks him up using those dainty Paul Walker arms, dusts him off dusts off his shoulder, and lets him go free. And this is where Byron's starting to get a sense that maybe there's something more to this T-Rex than meets the eye.
Yeah, I have really mixed feelings about this. I just said a second ago how fun the sequence was, and it is truly fun, but like, I'm a very pro practical effects, anti-CG guy. Some of the limitations of trying to work this around a like 12-foot tall actual physical T-Rex prop, I don't know, man. Part of me is kind of like, CG would have made this a little more believable. I don't know, man.
It is pretty poor in terms of the way it feels for realism. The way it feels for hilarity is an absolute 10. Like, it is brilliant in how fucking ridiculous this haul goes off.
It's just all these cuts to like, there's a person, we see them getting dragged off frame, then we cut to like the T-Rex still, and it's in their mouth, and it's like, how did we get here? This is so cool.
I just love that Paul Walker gets to block Billy back here. Like, this is a revenge block.
Turnabout is fair play.
Literally pulls the girl's leg off while Billy's inside of her, and that just ends it right there.
Billy thought he was crushing it too. She starts screaming when she sees T-Rex, and he's like, yeah, I'm great at this, right?
Oh my God. That scene I actually thought was pretty interesting. It shows Billy's vulnerability. They were building why he's a bully because he has zero confidence. When he was laying pipe on that chick, he knew he was fucking failing. He knew that she was putting on a show for him, and he just kept asking no matter what.
He was seeking validation for sure.
Yeah.
Now the cops come to clean this up, and most of them are not even a little bit rattled by the gore and viscera they're seeing here. They're fucking eating popcorn at one point, for fuck's sakes. Only the sheriff, who it turns out is Byron's dad, is concerned by any of this. And I guess he's going to need to put an APB out on a 12-foot tall animatronic dinosaur, which, let's be honest here, they should be able to find him in about 5 minutes. This is a gaping plot hole.
Yeah, you were upset by the fact that they couldn't hunt down this dinosaur or see it wherever it was. And I just think that because Paul Walker's brain was in it, he was able to camouflage and hide. This man knew what he was doing. He was out to get his love back. He wanted to have her back, and he knew how to protect that by hiding himself. He went soft on the footsteps. He was right there camouflaging and hiding with colors that were appropriate. I believe in Paul Animatronic Walker.
No, there is no way they would have been able to find him immediately. How many fucking places can a 12-foot tall animatronic dinosaur hide? Not many is the answer to that question.
There's a lot of barns in that community. They could all hold that dinosaur, no problem.
That's bullshit. They would have found him right away. Speaking of finding people, Helga finds what's left of Dr. Walkenstein's bodybuilder friend the next morning, and he looks hilarious. It's like they laid a shirt on the ground and melted a rubber mask where the head would be. Like,
he looks absolutely steamrolled. It looks like if you ran a steamroller over someone and it was the remainder.
It's the Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's Meanwhile, the T-Rex Paul Walker has also found the person he's looking for. It's Tammy. And after taking her out of her home to wherever he's hiding, we get what might be the stupidest scene in any movie I've ever seen in my entire life.
Oh my God.
The dinosaur.
You just said the stupidest thing.
It might be, dude. The dinosaur has to explain to her that he's really Paul Walker, but he can't talk. So he ends up doing like charades, and it's fucking absurd.
Michael. Brain. Michael's brain? You have Michael's brain?
He's doing like the 2 words, first word.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
They're playing charades.
Oh.
Somehow the dinosaur has a fucking yellow rose. I
true.
don't understand where it comes from.
Yeah.
He pulls out a yellow rose and he bites off the petals just like Michael did in that scene at the beginning to tell her that it's him.
That's where it pays off. Screenwriters high-fiving. We did it.
I don't understand where the dinosaur got a fucking yellow rose. And even after he did that, she didn't clue in immediately. She got like...
It takes her forever to figure this out. This scene was like intolerably long.
But also fucking hilarious.
Yes. It just like... the comedy built because of how fucking dumb she was in the face of this. Although in her defense, a fucking animatronic dinosaur is trying to tell you via charades that the brain of her ex-boyfriend has now been put in its head.
He's not ex. He's her current boyfriend. He's just deceased.
That's right. I'm sorry. She's still very much in love with him,
Yeah.
as we find out when the dinosaur nails her in about 5 seconds.
I think the biggest problem with this movie is they didn't show that. Like,
Broken Wings by Mr. Mister starts playing, and you get her laying back, and the animatronic T-Rex just leans over to the frame. That would have been incredible. Yeah, I agree. So she returns home after all this to find her house crawling with cops, and across the street, we see Dr. Walkenstein and Helga sitting in their car. He was staking the place out, I guess, waiting for her to arrive, and he makes a comment that he can tell she's been with the dinosaur because of the way she's walking. So at this point, we can only infer that she's been drilled by the T-Rex, right? That's what we have to assume.
the doctor definitely suggests that she's walking funny because an animatronic has been inside of her body. Yeah, absolutely. She also has the biggest smile on her face of the entire movie, so we can only assume that that dinosaur satisfied her every need.
Apparently.
We've seen how dexterous those hands are, so I'm sure he was working the as he was plowing her at the same time.
Oh my God. From there, we head to Michael's funeral, which T-Rex Paul Walker crashes just in time to hear his drunk uncle's stirring eulogy. It starts with him admitting that everyone knows he's just a drunk. The dinosaur nods knowingly, which is hilarious. But by the end of the speech, everyone is in tears, including the dinosaur, which is so fucking silly. Water is just pouring down the dinosaur face. Like,
Oh my
come
God.
on, man.
The only one not crying is Denise Richards because she knows he's alive and in the dinosaur body. But the fact that he is pouring tears while his drunk uncle is giving that eulogy is just fucking amazing. This is the point where you're just angry because no one's recognizing there's a massive dinosaur sitting there at the funeral.
It's clearly above the tree line.
Oh, yeah.
You know, my God.
I'm loving it though. This is fucking fantastic
There
at
you
this
go.
point.
Well, Dr. Walkenstein is there too, of course, and when he finally spots the dinosaur, he springs into action, grabbing Tammy and threatening to cut her jugular. She fights him off and gets the upper hand, but they keep him alive because they need him to put Michael's brain back into his body. Well, not his body, because as we see in a minute, it's already well into the decomposition process, so it's time to go on a body hunt.
Yeah, they were hoping to be able to put it back in its original body, but like you said, way too decomposed. His body was somehow full of maggots and rats at this point. Which leads to a funny scene where she's getting pulled out of the grave with those rats. And
Yeah, she went to
maggots
see it
there.
was really his body, and
Yeah.
it was, yeah.
It was, but it's not in good shape anymore. She's not going to be happy with banging that moldy corpse. So we are going to a morgue to find some more bodies for her. And this is perfect, right? You get to pick everything about your potential future lover. You get to choose their face. You get to choose their body. And you get to choose their apparently, because that's definitely a part of the choosing process here. They find kind of a handsome cadaver that seems like a young enough man, and when they look down at his size, Denise Richards is like, oh no.
Yeah,
that's
she's
not
a hard
gonna
no,
do.
but Byron is a hard yes. Emphasis on hard.
So we assume he's comfortable with that size, and she's not. She wants more.
But again, we couldn't decide. Is it too big for her and just right for him, or does she prefer it bigger? And this is the
After
thing.
getting by a dinosaur, like once you go dino, you don't go back. It's sort of, it can't happen anymore. So what I found most hilarious about this entire scene, the whole thing is just batshit that they're looking for a body to put his brain in, is that they decide to show him. So they start dragging corpses to the window.
Yeah. This is just 10 straight minutes of absurdist comedy. We got them looking at cadaver dicks, holding them up to the window like a fucking fashion show. We have a completely improbable car chase in a second and a hilarious misunderstanding when Dr. Walkenstein, who got tied up by Tammy and Byron at the funeral, asks Helga to chew his rope, and she ends up blowing him in the parking lot of the morgue. Like, this is just 10 minutes of silliness. We're full comedy at this point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If this wasn't obviously a comedy before now, it definitely is. He's not happy. The dinosaur says no to all of the bodies, including a hot female that got put up there too. Denise Richards also wasn't willing to scissor her way through the next 20 years, so it's kind of
hard. Yeah, man. Well, I mentioned a car chase here. Tammy and Byron notice that Dr. Walkenstein and Helga have managed to wiggle their way out of the car, and they hear police sirens coming, so they run out, drive away in the truck that is also carrying T-Rex Paul Walker. This chase ends when Tammy and Byron run out of road, so T-Rex Paul Walker has to run away from the police with Denise Richards riding on his back, and the sheriff, after contemplating his next move, decides to call in some extra support, and they surround the dinosaur in its sex barn / hiding spot.
Yeah, it's funny that she brought him back to the place where they first copulated the dinosaur-woman relationship.
Yeah, I guess so. Tammy and Byron try to negotiate here with the police, but the cops end up grabbing them. And just then, Dr. Walkenstein shows up, claiming that he can stop the dinosaur with some very dubious science. So they send him in there. And how does that work out for him?
Not well. Paul Walker / Dino bites out his stomach and mid-torso.
Which is so short-sighted because you need this guy to get your brain back in the human body, right?
Unless he's thinking if he kills him through torso, he can then take his brain and put it into another body and then get his other brain out of the dinosaur and into a human body.
But that makes no sense because you just killed that human body. So now you have 2 brains and not enough bodies.
I'm trying to make this movie work, Cooper.
Well, you're the only one.
So after he kills the scientist, the police department decide that they're going to just open fire on the barn.
Oh, yeah. Once a doctor gets mauled, the cops open fire, and T-Rex Paul Walker slumps to the ground, seemingly dead. This, along with Denise Richards' extremely emotional-ish reaction, elicits tears from literally everyone, including the 2 cops who were thoroughly unmoved by the many, many dead teenagers they saw earlier.
Yeah, and you did ask me how this turns out for Paul Walker, and I said not so well, but you know what? I'm going to retract that statement.
Oh, I asked how it turned out for the scientist.
Oh, well, the scientist, yeah, he got There's nothing left of him. There's nothing left of that guy. That guy is completely done. His research is over, kind of, because we're going to see it get taken to another level here very shortly.
Yeah, Helga's okay, though. Thank God.
Well, I know you would have been distraught if that
it would have been.
Tall drink of European water got wasted.
Is she European too? I guess her name's Helga. What am I saying?
She's definitely European.
So what's funny about this is Paul Walker now seemingly dead. The scientist is dead, so they can't put his brain back in a different body. But as we fade into our next scene, we see that Denise Richards is doing fine. She has recovered very nicely. And we find out why in a minute. It turns out that she was able to save Michael's brain and has not only kept it alive, but somehow created a system where he can see her, hear her, communicate with her, and also apparently his brain. I don't know. I don't really get the science, but neither does she. This is f***ing absurd. How did she do all of this?
The miracle of computers, man. This is a time
He's
when
hooked up to a fucking camcorder.
Can do anything.
A camcorder.
He's also hooked up to several computers. And he's able to see what she's doing, communicate with her through microphone, and she's able to see his reactions on those computer screens. We get this scene where she's super happy. She comes in. She tells him that she's got a change for him, and she shows up in lingerie.
Yeah, we're booking in this thing with sexy dancing.
Yeah, we start off with Denise Richards dancing as a cheerleader, and we end it on her doing a striptease, taking off some of her lingerie until, like you said, his brain sparks and we literally have a brain that jizzes itself, and then we cut to the credits.
Well, no, hang on. You missed a key thing also, which is After this little striptease, which, by the way, is aimed right into the camera, we end the movie with him saying,
You gotta get me in a body. I can't take any more of this.
this movie is so f***ing silly.
You think?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you sure this wasn't a very serious, like they were really pushing for like Golden Globes and Oscars when they came up with this bad boy.
This is why I have a hard time rating this. We're going to get to our ratings in a second, but I have very mixed feelings about this movie because, like, clearly, like we said, they are obviously in on the joke. Like, they have to be.
Yeah, which I think what this does is it makes our bad rating much more difficult than our enjoyability.
That's exactly what it is. I have no trouble at all on enjoyment. The bad is giving me trouble. How do you punish something for being bad when it's trying on purpose, when it knows it's bad and it's steering into it?
I agree. This is quite the paradox we've been put in here with the podcast. We're used to looking at movies that take themselves seriously, right? That are trying to achieve something.
Well, but hang on, because we talked about this during Birdemic. We talked about this during a couple. We're not sure if that's true in all cases, right?
I feel like Birdemic was taking itself seriously.
Yeah, I do too, actually.
The person who created that thought they were doing good things, which I had no problem giving that a 10 bad because
me neither.
like they, just absolutely didn't hit the mark. This is different, right? Because they are trying to make something that is just absolutely batshit, and they succeeded full force.
They did, and that's going to make it hard for us. But this is what the people come here for. We need to rate it. I think we should go into our ratings right now. So the way we always do this, we rate the movie on a scale of 1 to 10 two times. 1 to 10 for how bad it is, 1 to 10 for how enjoyable. And the goal is to find movies that are a 10 out of 10 on both scales, or what we call the Crit 20. And like I said, I'm really having trouble with the how bad for this one. The acting is truly awful. Many of the effects are awful. Anytime the dinosaur is moving, it is fucking laughably bad. And the plot is full of more holes than Paul Walker after getting mauled by that lion. But
There's no holes in him. He was fine.
He's bandaged up. They covered the holes. Whatever. I want to call this a 10, but because they are so clearly in on it, I'm just going to give it a 9. I can't go 10 on this because I feel like their intention was, we know the limitations. We're going to be silly about this. And they were. So it feels wrong for me to call that a 10 bad. Is that insane?
I don't see. It's funny because I know why you're doing this, because I think they were effective in what they were trying to do. They made it absurd. They didn't care about the quality of acting. In fact, they probably hoped that the acting was poor. They made choices that made it nonsensical. They made the gore and death and all of those things silly, I feel like, on purpose.
The characters, too. The characters are ridiculous.
Yes, it's all stereotypes. They're all ridiculous. But if we were just looking at this movie and thinking about the acting, thinking about the effects, thinking about the story, thinking about anything that happened in it, it would hit 10 out of 10 on our bad rating.
So that's your rating as 10.
I'm giving it a 10.
Okay.
And I understand why you're deciding not to, but I feel like the people who made this movie want it to be a 10. I feel like in calling it a 10, I am doing them a service, not a disservice, which I feel like you're going the other way on this.
I do think, though, like I mentioned the effects, and some of the effects were really bad, but there were a few actual, like, pretty decent effects, I thought. There were some, like honestly, I know I had mixed feelings about it. There were a couple of times where I'm like, that's pretty f***ing good, actually.
You're reaching right now.
You think so? Listen.
I mean, I love what you're doing here. I think that you should put up the full defense of your 9. This is clearly a 10 bad based on my opinion of what it is. And that's what it is. It is always an opinion, and I'm going to give this a 10 bad.
I guess, to be fair, if I showed this to any random person, they would probably recognize it as a really, like, terrible movie.
Could you meet a single person who wouldn't give this a 10 bad?
I met myself, so there we go. I'm calling it a 9. I don't feel good about it, but I'm sticking with the 9.
Hey, you do what feels comfortable for you. I'm not here to peer pressure you. I'm not like Billy trying to get people to have sex with him when they don't really want to. Or
what? That girl was all over Billy.
I mean, Denise Richards wasn't, though. That's really
that's
what he
true.
wanted,
Yeah,
right?
sorry.
That's really
I went to the one that he didn't.
Yeah, the girl that he was doing it with wanted it for sure. In fact, she wanted it more than he did, but he needed validation.
To give her right leg for it.
She did give her right leg. Yeah. She kept her life, though. Billy, not so lucky.
She did. Yeah, not so lucky. Okay, well, this is interesting then, because you said that the enjoyable part was going to be really easy for you. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how enjoyable did you find this movie?
It's insane. It's absolutely nothing that I could have anticipated. I did not know going into this that it was going to be so ridiculous.
Yeah, we had the sparsest of details entering into this one, which I don't mind, actually. I don't mind going in fresh.
I love that. I like that it's new and we didn't know what's happening. Even knowing that Paul Walker was going to become a dinosaur, it blew my expectations away. I laughed so hard. There were times where we had to stop the movie because I was laughing so much I couldn't consider taking notes anymore. And I was
rewind to hear lines. We're like, what did they just say? Is that possible? What we heard?
We had to do that. The gore was fun. The way that revenge happened in the form of a giant dinosaur was so funny. The fact that he went to his funeral and bawled his eyes out when his drunk uncle was talking about him was so funny. Yep. The randomness of having a tall European woman as your nurse, even though she was clearly like a European porn star. The whole characteristic of those people was really, really funny. The fact that Denise Richards had sex with a dinosaur in a barn.
We don't know that for sure.
We think that that's true was just really, really funny.
They showed us that.
Oh,
I mean,
I don't know, but in some ways, that's one of those moves where you're like, it's better to leave it to the imagination than to show it. But
I disagree. I do not agree with you.
I mean, trying to do that on film would have been an impressive feat. I would have liked that, but I think I have to do it. I think I'm giving it a 10.
Oh my God, what?
Crit 20.
This is a surprise. I am a little bit stunned by this. I mean, I know we had a good time watching it, but I don't know, man. Wow,
it's
good
weird,
for you.
And it's weird too because it doesn't feel the same as the others that I've given. Right? I think
Flash Gordon.
Yeah, Flash Gordon.
Voyage of the Rock Aliens.
Yeah, those are the two. And the ice was broken a bit with Flash Gordon, and that one was more fantastical for sure.
Yeah, you were walking funny after that one.
I was like Denise Richards. But this, I feel like, was made for the podcast. I almost feel like the creators of this had this kind of concept in mind when they made it, and they were looking to achieve on both of those terms. They were looking to make something that was shit, but would also make everyone laugh their ass off and have a really good time. I feel like that was the intent. And in giving it a crit 20, I'm kind of honoring that. I want to say good job to the people who created this because I really did enjoy myself, and I feel like you achieved what you were trying to do.
You know, you should say good job to is your friend Kelly. Great recommendation.
Yeah, well,
well done, sir.
He knows me well. I think he knew this was going to have a chance. I think he wouldn't have recommended it if he didn't think it had a chance, and it happened. It worked.
Well, all right. Look at that.
Thank you, Kelly. Good suggestion.
Okay, so
where are you going?
This beer? Huh?
You didn't give your rating?
No, I know. I don't have it as a 10 for enjoyable. I have it as a 9.
Okay.
I was enjoying myself. I was laughing. I was having a good time. I loved some of the effects. Some of them were low budget and hilarious. But the question I asked myself, am I going to watch this again? And I honestly don't know the answer to that question. And I feel like if I enjoyed it at a 10 out of 10 enjoyable, it'd be a lock. Yes, I will. Every other crit 20 I've given, I'm like, I'm going to watch that shit again, guaranteed. And so for that reason, I'm not going to give it a 10. Also, the fact that they did not show a Denise Richards animatronic T-Rex sex scene, that would have gotten me there. 100%, it would have gotten me there. I view it as a missed opportunity. Like I said, if you get the shot of her laying down, the T-Rex head comes down into frame, that would have been so fucking funny. Maybe the T-Rex in the bottom and the dino head's going up and down. Just something. It's a missed opportunity that I find regrettable.
So if there was a bit more dino porn, you would have been down.
9's not bad. Let's
no.
Here.
I think those ratings are fair. I want to challenge you on the not watch it again. Is this not a movie that you would love to watch with someone for the first time?
Oh, yes, 100%.
Right. This is a movie that
the right person. It has to be the right person.
I want to go hand to people and be like, watch this.
You're going to give them a double feature with that and let my puppets come and just be like,
yes,
hey,
exactly.
This is everything you need to know about me.
Yeah, that's
this
exactly
what I'm doing. This is old Nolan on a plate right here.
This is old Nolan right here. Watch these two movies and tell me what you think, and that will tell me everything about you. This has now become a movie that I want to watch with people to see how they react to it.
It's a personality barometer.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's fair.
And if they react and enjoy it and think it's hilarious and ridiculous, I like that person.
That's fair. I would like someone more if they laugh during this movie for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And if they're offended or don't understand it or don't get it, or I may be like, oh, okay.
I like Kelly more for this suggestion.
There you go.
I've met him only a couple of times, but I like him more after this.
In that way, I think that's why it deserves the 10 for enjoyability. But
fair.
It's it's your rating. This is what it is.
Yeah.
We get to decide on our own.
Hey,
and
I was mad when you didn't give Human Tornado and Silent Night Deadly Night crit 20s, but that's fine. We're different people.
this is how we do it, right? And this is good. This is what makes the podcast engaging. If we were on the same page every day.
We had a stretch there. We had the exact same ratings for like
Yeah.
3 or 4 weeks, and I was not happy about it.
No, you're like, what the f***? What's
Yeah.
happening to us? Are we
bad
becoming
times.
one? We don't want that. The fun part is when
we don't want
you make
that.
fun of
We
both my
can't both
enjoyment
be
of-
animatronic dinosaurs.
Yeah.
One of us has to be like,
How about the beer?
Well, here's one thing I think we will both agree on. This beer, Party Dinosaur from the Oozlefinch Beers and Blending, fucking delicious.
The name is kind of just as f***ed up as this movie, Oozlefinch Beers and Blending, but the beer is fucking fantastic.
God damn, they put so much fruit flavor into this. It doesn't even taste like beer. We've talked about the smoothie sours before, the slushy sours. It tastes like alcoholic fruit juice, and I fucking love it, for the record. And this combination, the banana, the mango, the pineapple, I didn't get as much of the blackberry, and it was very light in color, so I feel like the blackberry must be a small amount. But like, man, great combination. Fantastic fucking job by them.
Yeah, slushy sours are an interesting one because it creates controversy in the beer world. In essence, it's not really a beer, but it's brewed by a brewery. And I guess seltzers have kind of come into that place too. They are absolutely crushable, right? You can sit down and drink, I don't know how many of these. They're a bit filling, is what I find when I drink them.
Yeah, I think the sugar would be a concern for me.
It could definitely be hangover sauce if you were crushing them too much, but there's very few of them that I've come into that weren't some of my favorite beers. I'm pretty sure I gave Counterparts last year in our ratings one of the
One of
highest
your biggest ones, yeah, one of your top
of
5
the year. And
definitely.
I mean, it's too early to talk about our favorite beers, but this one was really, really
Yeah, this will be up
good.
there for me. I would be, I mean, we have a whole other half season coming still, plus a few more, but this has shot to the top of my rankings for what we've done so far because it's fucking great.
Yeah, I would love to try something else from them. If you're in Virginia or you have access to their beers, definitely go check them out. I've never been to Virginia, but if I do, I would make a point of visiting this place just to get a hold of some of the beers that they're offering because this one is delicious.
I bought this in Cincinnati, so it's around. If you're in the U.S. and to any of our American listeners, if you have not had Party Dinosaur or anything from Oozlefinch, check them out because that was a great fucking time. And hopefully next week will also be a great fucking time. Next week, we are watching a legendary 80s B movie. It's got action. It's got kung fu. It's got friendship and music. All set in the great state of Florida. Next week, we are watching Miami Connection.
It sounds good. Is it like, I'm getting vibes of David Hasselhoff? Is that
No. Similar to the films of Rudy Ray Moore, this is a labor of love. One person basically wrote and directed and starred in this movie. And this is his vision for what an 80s, martial arts type movie should look like. And, I love the 80s. I said it a lot this season. Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun one. It's just a legendary. If you go online and look up bad movie clips and stuff, you'll see clips of this movie posted regularly because it is hilariously bad. But between now and then, if you have not already, please follow us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at the BMB Podcast.
Feel free to also send us emails, thebmbpodcast@gmail.com.
Absolutely. That's how we got our request for today's episode, which got a crit 20 from fucking Noel over there. How about it? But until next week, we hope you'll join us for Miami Connection. I'm Cooper.
And I'm Nolan.
And we'll see you next time on Bad Movies and Beer.
Keep it Tammy.
Ah, very nice. He's the coolest pet in town.